Welcome to the next live learning Sheila opportunity, Careers in Public Safety with Motorola Solutions Foundation. We have an awesome panel for each and every one of you all that we hope that will help you all on your journey as you guys continue to explore STEM. As you see on the sheet, I wanted you all to do your pre-event survey first. If you have not done so already, I left a link in the chat. I want to take some time to thank our sponsors, Motorola Solutions Foundation, General Motors, Lockheed Martin, and Cisco Technologies. For without them, of course, we would not be able to do these sessions. So thank you so much for that. Of course, we have them with us tonight, so that makes it even more special. A couple housekeeping things just to keep in mind. Our upcoming sessions are available online on the Sheila website. As well as you'll get an email in our newsletters as well about the next Sheila session. So please make sure that you're checking those out to see what's coming up next. Also, we have the Sheila Classroom. So if you have not gotten your invitation and your class code for that, make sure that you also check out the Sheila Classroom after this session. I'll also provide that information for you if you don't have it already, to join all the rest of your peers online to talk about some of the sessions and get some additional resources as we continue on with our Sheila sessions for this year. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and play you all a quick video, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. As you can see, here's a quick agenda on what you should expect for tonight's session. So we'll have an intro, which I'm doing now, the panel discussion, Q&A, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up after that. Let me go through these learning objectives first. I'm sorry, I'm skipping around. So our learning objectives first. By the end of this session, attendees will be able to recognize different engineering disciplines and public safety careers at Motorola Solutions. They'll be able to recognize the day-to-day activities of various types of engineers and technologists. They'll be able to recognize the products and services produced by Motorola Solutions, and they'll also be able to recognize the interests of different engineers and technologists. So now we'll be able to play a really quick video for you guys to look at, and please let me know if you can hear and see it in the chat.
I know some girls like princes and tiaras, but there's so much more to us than that.
I did not really pick engineer at the beginning.
I sometimes think engineering chose me.
For me, from where I come from, it's not normal to be a woman engineer. But ever since from my school days, I have always been inclined towards science and maths and physics.
So I always wanted to be a software engineer, and I went that path. The fact that you have to solve problems, that you have to think logically, that those problems are different all the time.
You can build something, you can create something, you can deploy it and create this product.
It's so extremely rewarding. You get to make such an impact. As a test engineer at Motorola Solutions, my job basically is to test the extreme and the normal scenarios the product is being used. It's very significant work because out there in the field, one person or a whole community might get affected, and sometimes it's a life or a death scenario.
There's so many different things you can do at Motorola. There's opportunity for everyone. We make an effort to have women in our organization, and that we can show that you can be successful, and that all it takes is that you have to want to do it, and you can achieve everything you want.
We still have a long way to go, and I look forward to a day where woman engineer will just be called an engineer and not a woman engineer. So that is a bright future I am looking forward to.
Well, here we go with a little inspiration. So without further ado, I want to get us started. So I'm going to introduce you to your moderator for this evening, Kirti Mesheshwari, I think is how we say it. I'm so sorry. We just practiced this and I messed it up. Kirti Mesheshwari is going to be your moderator for this evening. So she's going to introduce you all to the panelists. as well as introduce you to herself, because she has a very wonderful background. Something that I would like to highlight about all of our panelists this evening: we have all different ranges of engineering backgrounds and experience, as well as cultural backgrounds. So you're going to get a wide variety of experience here that I hope that one day you all will see yourselves in the roles that they have, or even further than that. You know, we want to help inspire you to excel beyond what you think you're capable of at this moment, because, you know, we all say we're so young, but this is how we inspire and really empower you in these moments, is to show you what an engineer looks like. So, and what possible pathways you guys can take from here. So I'm going to go ahead and give the mic over to Kirsty and let her go ahead and introduce you to the panelists.
Thank you, Markita, for such a warm welcome to all of us. We are very excited to be here today with all of you to talk about the careers in public safety. I'm your moderator, as Markita said. I'm your moderator for today. My name is Kirti Maheshwari. I'm an electronics engineer by qualification, and now working in information technology at Motorola Solutions. I did my education in India as an engineer and then came back to USA. And since that time, had an opportunity to interact with a lot of people that helped me grow up. And our goal today over here is to aspire to inspire all of you with a beautiful career that is ahead of you by listening to the wonderful colleagues and the panelists we have today. Janet brings a rich experience of the leadership role as a sales and a marketing leader from the Caribbean region. Catherine, she is the chief of staff and has a vast experience in innovation, in product, in doing new researches, developing standards. VP, she brings an experience. She's also an engineer and brings the experience of what it means to design the products which are easy for our customers to use in whatever settings they are. Richard, he brings the perspective of a fresh engineer. He just graduated from the college a few years ago and has been leading a lot of diversity initiatives in Motorola. So I welcome you all to the panel discussion today.
Thanks, Kirti.
Okay, and at this moment, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so we can get an opportunity to really see the faces of the panelists that we have before us. All right.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
So we'll start with a further introduction for all the panelists. I'm going to request them to talk about the reason they chose engineering as a career, a little bit about their career journey, and about their job, as well as share what do they like about working over here at Motorola Solutions. So Janet, how about I start with you?
Sure, thank you, Kirti. Let's see, talk about how I chose or why I chose engineering. So basically my dad, right? So my dad was a communications technician. He was an immigrant from Cuba and came to the United States. And he encouraged me day in and day out to come in to check out what they were doing at work. So that was my start in thinking about engineering. And started at Motorola about 20 years ago now as a systems engineer. So that was kind of fun. I got to really design equipment and talk to customers. At one point, I was told that they noticed that I liked talking to customers. So, and that was my first invitation to join the sales team. I really never thought about sales as something I wanted to do, but it just seemed to fall into place for me. So I went into the sales team. I've been leveraging all the knowledge that I've gained through engineering to help me while I work with customers. So it's kind of how I started with Motorola.
Thank you, Janet. Catherine?
Hello, everyone. I'm Katrine Reitzmer. I am born and raised in Germany. So I went to high school there, and my favorite two subjects were math and physics. So when I had to make a decision, like, you know, I was getting close to graduating from high school, I thought, well, what are we going to do with it? And I thought, oh, maybe I just study math and physics. But then I went to an event similar to one like this, and the dean of electrical engineering was there from a university close by. And he explained to me that if you like math and physics and you like solving real world problems, then you should consider a career in engineering. And then he also showed the salary of a teacher, like a math teacher versus an electrical engineer. And that was kind of the final thing. I'm like, wow, you get to solve real problems and they're in demand and well paid. And so I ended up getting a master's in electrical engineering. And throughout that, throughout the course of, like, you know, getting my master's degree, I discovered that I really like computer science as well. So I ended up doing a PhD in Canada, and that's another perk of engineering. It's global, it's a global language. You can go anywhere in the world with those skills. So I got a PhD in Canada in electrical and computer engineering. And I shifted towards cybersecurity, how to protect communications. So the topic was communication security. Then I got an internship in the US, and that's how I ended up, like, you know, in the United States and ultimately with Motorola. And the journey there was always driven by how can we solve real problems? And that's one of the things that attracted me to Motorola Solutions, where when you work on a product, you can actually save someone's life. It could be the end user of the product, like police, you know, responding to an emergency, or a firefighter responding, or the officer themselves. And that fills you with great pride, and you take your job really seriously.
Thank you, Catherine. So you have moved across countries, across fields. And Veera?
Hey everyone, my name is VP and I'm based in Chicago, but I grew up in India, and I've grown up, you know, in a family filled with engineers. You know, my dad was one, my sister, you know, my cousins, all of them. And then, you know, it's always, I've always been intrigued by solving things and making things. And that was a part of me, but the other part of me was the creative side. I also grew up as a kid who would draw and paint all the time. So I was conflicted, you know, similar to Katri. I'm like, what do I do? Should I pick art as a field, or do I, you know, kind of get into engineering? And again, it was like, what pays you better? And, you know, looking at the options, I was like, engineering seems like there's so much scope and so many branches within engineering that you can kind of focus in on. So I actually got my undergrad in electronics engineering. And then I actually worked as a software engineer at an IT firm for about 4 years back in India and then here in Chicago. And, you know, one project I was working on really was interesting because it got me thinking about how users would use the front end of products, right? I was thinking so much about the back end, but, you know, the creative side in me is like, oh my God, I can make this look better. You know, why is it designed a certain way? And, you know, but I had no say in changing it because there were people specialized in it. So I started reading more about user experience design and then got a master's in design. And then joined Motorola in 2016. And I now lead a global team of user experience designers, you know, and my team works on the front end, the user experience of mobile applications for first responders. So mostly, you know, police officers and firefighters. And the reason I really love my job is the impact, you know, that we make, right? It's really amazing to see, you know, changing the position of a button, for example, you know, it can like save lives, right, in this mission critical scenario. So that's one of my favorite things about working here in Motorola. And the second thing is also, you know, we have a lot of fun, right? Just the culture here, you know, it's a big company, but it's almost like working in a startup within the company. So I really enjoy what I do as well.
Thank you, VP. And Richard, would you talk about yourself
Sure.
now?
Sounds good. So my name's Richard, or Ricky Nelson V. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. And as far as I'm thinking about why did I become an engineer? The first thing that comes to mind is that growing up, I used to just love making stuff, right? So if you were my parents, you probably know that like the three things I would ask for most often were tape, batteries, and like paper or like wood, just materials to make stuff out of. And although I didn't have any engineers in my family, something that I did have was two parents that worked their entire lives in public service. So my mom's been a teacher for longer than I've been alive. My dad's been a teacher and worked with at-risk youth. So one thing that they really instilled in me was like education. So I always came home, finished homework, and then typically had more homework from my parents. And I never really liked reading that much. It's grown on me now a little bit more, but math always seems to be like one of my favorite things. So the combination of loving to build things and math, and then getting into physics, as Kitchen said, very similar like backgrounds in terms of like our interests. That kind of carried me into college. And when I got to college, I think, and I'm going to pivot from here into why I love working at Motorola. First, I'll mention why I love engineering. It's because when I got to college, and I declared my major in mechanical engineering, like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of friends or family members that were engineers. So being able to network with other students in different organizations like SWE and SHEP and NSB, it gave me a real chance to kind of come into my own and get to really like meet other people, make a lot more friends, and also learn more about myself, and also get a lot of leadership experience. So that was really, really, really empowering for me. I wound up graduating with my bachelor's in mechanical engineering with minors in computer science and business. And then I also completed like 5 different internships, which gave me an opportunity to travel around Florida and also the country as well too. So I got to do a little bit of work in California as well, which is really fun. And all of that to say, now that I'm here working at Motorola as a mechanical engineer, I'm working in the current products engineering group, which basically means that I support basically all the current products that are existing in the field. So if a radio comes back, and there's some really crazy stories about some of the things that our radios go through, I get to basically do different root cause analysis and things like that, and help improve our designs to help make our products stronger and more robust. And I love that because it really gets to kind of that little kid from when I was younger, in terms of wanting to figure out how stuff works and make new things. So it really allows me to kind of stay true to myself while also being surrounded by other really, really, really smart people that I can learn from on a daily basis.
Wow, so all of you have brought out a few which stands out as all of you have chalked different journey. Even though you started as engineering, the path that each of you has taken different, and it resonates with what you enjoy doing. What are your strengths? And that's just awesome. So now moving on to the next group of discussion topic is about understanding how do we create technologies for the public safety. So I'll be talking about a few questions to give all of you the future leaders and the persons who are going to shape the world to talk about how does we create technology in public safety. So we'd like to understand the panelists' view on what they think about public safety and how does the technology help public safety in the day-to-day lives. So Janet, how about we start with you?
Sure. I mean, it's, technology has been evolving so fast and moving so fast. I think public safety's found themselves having to deal with the amount of information that they're dealing with on a daily basis, right? The social media feeds, the big data, that type of information is now becoming key to them, right? So how they investigate an incident, they're getting streams and data from everywhere, right? I mean, people post in Facebook what's going on, right? People are putting videos out there. So all that information is stuff that's public safety is using today to solve crime, right? And try to help citizens, right, on what's going on. And so I think, every day officers are trying to figure out how they get information that matters to them so that they can help citizens, right, at that moment, right? So I think technology is becoming vital to the officer, just like they would say their gun is, right, their radio for voice portion, and now the data portion is also just key to the mission of what they do every day.
Anybody would like to add on?
Yeah, I can actually, talk about, how important I felt, technology is in public safety, because, one of the major user groups that my team deals with is police officers. And we are constantly thinking about, hey, like, what are the main goals, right? So, it's speed, safety, and accuracy, right? So speed, again, you want to get to a scene as soon as possible. In terms of accuracy, you want to have the most current and right information about that particular incident, right? When you get to a scene. The other thing is safety. You want to make sure while you're doing all this, it's important to be, eyes up and hands free, and make sure, if you're safe, your officers with you are safe, and citizens are safe, right? So, to give you an example of how, technology can help achieve some of this is, say an officer is responding to a domestic violence incident and they're en route to a particular house, right? What we can do there is provide them tactical routing options so they don't enter through the front door, and they may escalate the situation, right? It might be a high stress situation inside. So depending on the type of incident, we might even provide them routing through the back alley, right? So the bad guys aren't alerted, and there's not, the situation doesn't get worse, right? So that's the kind of impact, technology and providing them the right information at the right time can really make a huge difference to the response time and the way they react to situations.
Thank you, Vivi. What are some of the major challenges that public safety faces, and how does technology help them solving those problems? Richard?
Sure. So let's see. Some of the challenges that public safety faces, I think it's the variability, right? A lot of times when we talk about our products, we talk about how robust they are and how they're designed for the most, for the roughest and toughest situations. And I know that sounds, that might sound a bit, cliche, all engineers are going to say that their things are robust, but my mind goes back to a few things that I've seen. I've only been at Motorola for about a year and a half. And in that time, I've seen so many different stories play out, and seeing how our products performed in them really spoke volumes. So two that come to mind. One, I remember seeing a video from last year from LA Fire Department, where there were some firefighters in a burning building, which, I mean, that's as per usual. And the building actually exploded. However, every single person from that fire department was able to escape alive and safely, because they were able to communicate effectively to escape the building and right in the nick of time. But the amazing part is that when you see the actual live video and you see some of the firefighters running down this huge ladder, like 8, 9 stories in the air, and the flames are starting to engulf the ladder, and you think, how in the world, how do you build something that survives that environment? And I actually got a chance to see those radios come back in, because they're not because there was a problem, but because the department was so impressed in the fact that the radios still worked after the fact. They wanted to know if we wanted to actually see how they were performing afterwards. So that was really cool. They smelled like a barbecue when they came into the office, but they still worked, which was really, really, really impressive. And then another story that I heard was how a radio fell out of a helicopter. I believe this was from a police station, and they lost it. They wound up finding it a couple of years later, turned it on, and it still worked. And I have no idea the altitude that they were at when they were flying, but it was really impressive to me to just see, wow, this is an amazing engineering feat to be able to design for such harsh environments that obviously, no one wants to find themselves in. But when the people that serve our communities put themselves in harm's way to help save us, it's nice to know that they have products that we make that are really designed to survive and help them survive as well too.
And that's impressive, Richard. I do remember after the 911 incident, the radios were found under the rubble of the buildings, which were still operating and healthy. So the technologies is just vital to help our police officers and other public safety leaders do what we expect them to do day in and day out. What are the key considerations that have to be taken into account when engineering the products for public safety? Katrin, you want to take a lead on this one?
Sure. It's actually, following up on some of the scenarios here that we already talked about, that the environment is just extreme, and our, solutions still need to work. And when I was in the security research lab, we were looking at the next generation of user authentication. And the old way of authenticating is typing in a password. But if you can imagine, if you're under great stress, you can't type in a password while you're chasing someone. You can't type in a password if you're wearing gloves, if you're a firefighter, you have gloves on. And so then we went through all the different scenarios, and this is where the security team worked very closely with the user experience team that VP talked about. And we had to look at how are the customers using the devices. For instance, if you're a firefighter and you have a mask on, you cannot use facial recognition. If you wear gloves, you can't use fingerprints. You cannot use voice in stressful situations because your voice actually changes. So you have to go through all the different options and tailor it for the use cases. And that's something where I really learned that security is important, but lives, like cybersecurity is important, but lives are more important. So you have to make some trade-offs there and really design a good solution. So I thought it was a good challenge.
Anybody would like to add on in their experience? This is the key part of what we do.
I'll chime in really quick. So I think that's a really good point. Being in tune with the customer is critical. Something that I've learned as well is, so Motorola does a variety of things to be able to interact with customers via trade shows, both externally and internally. Obviously, with the team that I'm working on, we interface with customers regularly typically because there's something that they want to see improve. And getting that feedback from the customer is so valuable, because there's things that as an engineer, you may be thinking, oh, this is the ideal product. This is exactly how I would want it if I were using it. But the thing is, 9 times out of 10, you're not the end user. You're not the one that's going to be using it. So there's little things that you may not realize that are really important to a user. For example, before I was working here, I've heard stories about how we used to develop a radio that used to be like, basically it looked like a brick. It was just very, 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 very straight. And the previous version of that radio had kind of a shoulder design at the top, and customers really liked that, because when it was raining and they were running, if a cop was running and chasing someone and they were holding their radio to call for backup, the top shoulder design helps them grip the radio better. So when we designed a new radio, even though it had way more features than the previous design, the customer complained and was like, hey, what happened? This slips in my hand a lot more. And, from an ergonomics perspective, from a mechanical perspective, that might have not have been something that people, ranked very highly in the design choice. But after getting that meaningful customer feedback, we obviously made the changes necessary, and the customer loved it. And we still stick with that design to this day.
And Janet, since you work on a daily basis with the customers, how does the customer help? How do you get them engaged into these? Anything you would like to share on the customer point of view as Motorola is developing technologies from them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Probably the number one thing that I appreciate about what we do is that we do talk to customers, right? When we go to launch a new device, we actually put it in their hands. We get their feedback. It gets back to the product group. They tweak things. It's key, right? I mean, and they're living with it every single day, right? And so getting that feedback from them is priceless, right? I mean, I just know that over the years, I've had that experience where I've been, a product group has told me, I was not part of the product organization, right? So I was always more in engineering side of designing systems and direct contact with the end customer, right? So as you'll notice within Motorola, there's different types of engineers, right? We've got computer engineers, electrical engineers, right? We've got engineers that do ergonomics, right? So I got to be with the end customer a lot. So I would work with them. Product group would say, hey, Janet, go take this to this customer, see how they're doing, right? And anyway, that feedback is just essential, right? They're living it every day, and we have to design products to make those needs. So.
And how has COVID changed the customer needs and the technology that we produce?
Yeah. I mean, COVID has changed a lot of things. I mean, for instance, we have customers that they themselves are in lockdown, right? So the territory I have, I lead the sales team into Latin America. And many of our customers there, even today, right, find themselves unable to go to their place of work, right? So they're looking at solutions about how can I even do dispatching from somebody's home? I mean, they've actually called us, hey, how can I download this software and dispatch from there, right? So we've got customers having to deal with an environment that they've never dealt with, and the technology has to be flexible for them, right? So, and I think that's what they found is that we are a company that innovates, right, and thinks about things about how we're going to deal with something as crazy as a pandemic that we're living in today.
Anybody would like to add to Janet's thought?
Yeah, I would like to mention that the pandemic is like very challenging for everyone, but like to engineers, that's when the problem solving kicks in again, right? And we're like, okay, how can we help? And as part of our video security business, they, in a very short time, use the technology we have, like the cameras, used to basically protect buildings, to add some intelligence so it can detect if you're wearing a facial mask, and then it will get an alert. We also use similar technology, and again, it was like machine learning combined with the cameras to detect the distance between people, to make sure like we follow social distancing. So there was, there's always opportunities whenever something happens, even like, like horrible cases like the pandemic or 9/11 or like the BP oil spill. Engineers then are challenged the most to respond to those and can actually help. From a customer perspective, I don't know if you've seen this, Janet, one of the changes we saw is because people are remote now, they're working from home, they are looking into our cloud solutions. So we have like older solutions that, they're installed on premise. So you have a server, you have a lot of hardware, but more and more technology moves actually into the cloud. And some of our customers are actually a little bit reluctant, because it's new. Public safety is not maybe as cutting edge as all you guys with like smartphones and consumer devices. They move much slower. But last year, the interest was increased because suddenly it's like, hey, that would be great if we could use it without, like working from home, or maybe we don't need to send a field engineer in to fix something. You can do it like online. So that's some trend I saw in customers.
So a lot of collaboration, a lot of out of the box thinking, seeing the customers first, applying our strengths helps us produce the products that the public safety relies on us on a daily basis. So now let's talk a little bit about the career journey that you have gone through. What do the students need to do in the high school to get into engineering career? What did you do to get into an engineering career? Wants to pick up?
Take a stab at this one really quick. So high school is really a special time for a number of reasons. And as you get older, you'll look back and realize that that's 100% true. So make sure you really take advantage of that time. Because really the high school lays the foundation for a lot of what you're going to do afterwards. So, I mean, the college that you get into is largely dependent upon things that you do in high school, and the connections that you start making from high school can last you as long as you want them to last. So a lot of people say that, you might make friends, you make connections at that age, and they, by 10 years later, you don't even talk with any of those people anymore. That's sometimes the case, but in other cases, sometimes those people, sometimes you do maintain those relationships, and sometimes those relationships lead to other relationships that help you learn new things that challenge you in different ways, that help open doors and opportunities. So it's important to, I say, one, make sure that you don't stop networking, don't stop being willing to learn more about yourself and learn about other people. That's one thing that you can definitely do, like starting from where you are right now. The other thing is, don't let anyone ever tell you that you have to wait to like apply for opportunities and look for opportunities to advance yourself. Because the opportunities, like the time to look for opportunities and to take advantage of what's out there is right now. And there's no age limit for that. You know, there's opportunities for you to intern. Some people will say, oh, you can't intern your freshman year of college. It's very possible. You can do it, trust me. It's just a matter of being able to A, make sure that you have the grades in the classroom, and then B, building that network for yourself as both as friends and also as professionals is really crucial, because there's opportunities out there for you to take advantage of. There's lots of scholarships and grants out there for you to take advantage of. But if you are not willing to ask questions and to talk with people, then a lot of times you have no idea that they exist. So to make sure you take the time to talk and to learn, be inquisitive, and never procrastinate wanting to improve yourself.
Thank you, Richard. And what is one piece of advice that you would give to the students who wants to become an engineer? Go ahead, Janet and Catherine.
Yeah, I would say do what makes you happy, right? I think find something that you're good at, and then make it your passion, right? And follow it, right? And don't let people tell you that you can't do it. I remember starting in engineering school, and I was the only female in the entire class, right? And it, you kind of feel like, what am I doing here, right? Maybe I can't do this, right? And people kind of say that to you, right? Are you sure you want to do this, Janet? There's a lot of math involved, right? And that you just got to push through that, right? And just, don't let people deter you from what you want to do and what makes you passionate, right? So I think that would be the one thing I would tell people, is that don't let other people deter you from doing things.
And that what you said, Janet, I find it so relevant even today. It does not matter where you are in your career journey. Following the passions, as you said, and taking what you are good at doing just is a way to move ahead. So the next things, I'd like to get the panel's perspective on two aspects. What are the cool things that you do at Motorola that you enjoy? And what is that overall you enjoy being at Motorola?
Yeah, I have some experience, and I think there was the video that we showed at the beginning. I don't know if you noticed, there was one scene where someone was running with a drawn gun. And that's actually a training here in Chicago. It's called Shoot or Don't Shoot. And it's actually just showing you how quick you have to make decisions. So I got to attend this training, and it's changed my perspective. Number one, I'm in the right place. My place is being an engineer, not a police officer, because I won't be good at that job. But it was a cool experience to train with them and learn from their perspective. Like, for instance, it was very important not to have too much information, because we are looking at glasses and then you overlay extra information there. But that would be very distracting if you have to make those life-changing decisions. And we have, for the fire side, we also have training that you can attend. And I would say that was a life-changing day to run into a burning building. It's a mock-up building, but it's the same training that firefighters do. And you get to use our equipment, but you also see like how stressful everything is. But again, it reminds you why you're doing this job, and like, hey, I'm actually doing something really meaningful here. And how can we protect those firefighters? Because your instinct, and that's pretty obvious, is to run away. It's not going into the building. And I must say, I almost had a panic attack. But it was still like such a good experience, and I'm glad I got to join it. So those kind of things at Motorola I really like, that we really value the customer's point of view, and every engagement with a customer, re-energizes you.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that as well. Totally agree with Katrine on that. I've done the fire training and it was eye-opening, right? Just wearing all that gear, oh my God, and wearing your gloves and kneeling down and walking into a completely dark space while using a radio to talk was I'm like, their jobs are so hard, and it just creates more empathy, right, for the users you're designing for, because you cannot make assumptions. You might think of it a certain way when you're designing, but when you in the real environment is when it really hits you. I have similar experiences in research. So a part of design is design research. And we have a team of design researchers in Motorola whose jobs are just to go understand how users work and, just to sit with them and see what their day-to-day is like. So I've gotten to go on a few ride-alongs, and, so I've sat with patrol officers. One such experience was in Portland, where, we were just patrolling. I was sitting next to him, and it was so eye-opening, like little things that they have to do, but they have workarounds because technology currently, at that point didn't support it, right? So he spoke to a suspect, and, he took notes on a coffee cup, on a styrofoam cup. And, it was very important information, but he literally took down the address of this person and phone number on that because that was the easiest available thing, and technology didn't support that. And then he had to manually type all that in, keep that safely, and then type it into the report that he was creating, right? It's just a small thing, but one feature we're creating now is just a digital note-taking app, right? We have a mobile app that my team is working on to just help them take notes. It's a simple thing, but it just makes their job so much easier. And the second, really interesting research trip I was on was to a jail. So I was designing the software for jail officers. Again, not a very fun trip, just like given that we were entering an all-men jail. We were like two women designers, just trying to understand how a jail works. And we were just walking there, just seeing the whole environment and understanding, what environment we're designing for, right? Like till then we were like, oh, okay, so it's a jail officer, and you have an idea, but you don't until you go see it, right? So jail, there are like cell checks that happen, every hour or so, and they would have to print out a list of inmates every hour, go inside and manually check it off, come back, digitize each of it, right? So there could be 100 inmates, and they do it manually, right? And it takes up all their time. So we literally, with that, we just designed again an app to just go there, scan their IDs, and just say, hey, they are present, right? So it's just the value of how technology can really make their jobs easier. And these are some of my favorite experiences in Motorola, and some of the cool things that we get to do often. And I think it really opens your eyes and makes your design better, right, overall. So I think that's cool.
Thank you. So it is being with the customer, seeing, observing what they are doing, how they are doing, and applying the creative hat upon what can we do to make their life easy. And that is very, very beneficial as we come out with new innovations and all the products that we supply. Now, as I ask more questions, it would be awesome if all of you who are here listening could take this opportunity and ask the questions. It's a great time for you to ask your questions. Put your questions in the chat room over here that Markita would read out.
So because they actually have the questions up now.
Awesome.
So we have one question from Hannah for VP. You go ahead, and did you want to read it, Kirsty, or you want me to read it?
You can read it out there already.
Sure. So for VP, would you recommend taking classes in design if you mainly want to be an engineer?
Great question. So, back in the days, I didn't know this, but now there are so many options. So HCI, or human computer interaction, is pretty great. It's a great combination of the two, right? So you would get your computer science basics, and if you want to code the front end, then you can learn that there. But there are classes in HCI which focus on user research, right? Like what are some of the methodologies that you can use when gathering information on the field, similar to some of the projects I spoke about. It kind of trains you on that aspect as well. And you also get trained on the actual front end design, right? So you can pick and choose the field that you eventually want to focus on. But I think HCI is a great option for someone, you're like, hey, I want to learn, I'm interested in design and how something, works with a user. So I want to get the user's perspective, but at the same time, I want to build this, right? I want to build the front end. I want to get it working. Definitely check it out. I can actually, put it here. So it's human computer interaction. Yeah, I think a lot of places kind of offer that now. It's a more recent thing.
So while VP are adding the information, here is a next question read for you. What do you think are a couple of best ways to network with the engineering communities?
Good question. So, and I'll let you know what I knew in high school and then what I learned after high school. So in high school, didn't know a whole lot about how to network. I was a very shy kid. So the fact that I'm even doing this right now, I'm like, all right, this is growth, this is an improvement. So I was applying to a lot of scholarships, and I was able to find an organization that was a network of engineers that worked in the energy space, and they were offering a scholarship. I applied, and I actually was able to get it. And not only did I get the scholarship, but I was able to also go to a couple of events with other engineers and talk with them. And that's actually ultimately what led to my first internship in college. So the first thing I would say is if you're in high school right now, like, it's never too early to start applying for scholarships, because maybe whether it gets you money to help pay for college or not, it definitely should, but it also can help you create pathways to network that could lead to job opportunities down the road. And the thing that I didn't know in high school was what a lot of you are already know already by being a part of by being on this call with SWE. So in college, I learned this, but organizations like SWE and SHEP and NSBE that I mentioned already, they're phenomenal. So I don't even know where to begin. I don't want to be long-winded either. I'll just mention that a lot of the opportunities that I was able to work towards and obtain in college were because of organizations like SWE. For me, it was NSBE and SHEP. And it gave me a lot of opportunities to go to conferences, so that it was great to be able to travel and also meet more people. It's great because especially if you're someone that's, when you go to college and you're the only one that looks like you in your class, when you go to those conferences and you look around and you see thousands of other people that look kind of like you, and they're all in STEM, they're all in engineering, it is so empowering. So not only do you get to make a lot of friends, but it's also just very encouraging. So I encourage you as much as possible to stay involved with SWE as much as you can. Make sure that when you're in college, you go to conferences, go to events, and just be active, because you'll never know what opportunities will take you. So always be looking to network through ways like that.
Thank you, and take advantage of SWE, all the relationship that you have seen through everybody you are interacting as a course of a Sheila program and beyond. So Catherine, here's a question for you. What is a piece of advice you would give to someone that is interested in working abroad?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, it was years of planning. It's something that takes really some research and some determination. So I started looking into moving to Canada. So you need to start doing research. What do you need to do? Call the embassy. They're like, yeah, finish high school first and then call back, And so you need to do a lot of research. You need to speak the language, whatever country you choose. There might be language requirements, so can start soon enough on that front. And then you need to be familiar with exchange programs. So the best advice is actually to looking into existing exchange programs. Otherwise, you have to do everything by yourself, right? You have to identify an employer or university. It's better to go through an organization that helps you, because they will take care of, of placing you, visa questions, housing, insurance. All those things are really difficult if you do it by yourself. So again, I would just, search the internet. Maybe your school has anything. Most universities and like colleges offer something. And I think that's the easiest way. Otherwise, it can be overwhelming. But depending on the countries, there's usually a lot of programs, especially, that early on in your career. So it's just something that requires some planning. It took me a few years, and then it worked, and I ended up living in Canada for a few years. But I think it's a great experience, especially I think even if it's only 6 months, it will change your life. I really believe that, and it will open your mind to other opportunities.
So the next question, which is what are the top 3 types of engineers that you hire? So I would say even though the top 3 branches are computer, mechanical, and electronics, keep in mind that these are no way that if you are engineer of some other profession, you cannot. Recognize that we are looking for talent, and that is what is the key. Your passion, your interest, the field of engineering is no restriction in terms of choosing your career path. So we're almost out of time. So I would request each of the panelists to do a quick 30-second update on their final thoughts. What would they like to share in brief to the participants? Just a fire round. And you can go in any order.
Cool, I can go first. I would say, what you guys are doing now is great, just like reaching out and just learning more about the real experience of working in a company and what certain fields might mean, right? This is going back, I thinking back of to my career, I would have loved to do this and gain more insight into it, at this age, and then make a decision based on that. So keep it going. And definitely, I think Richard also gave great advice about networking. I think that's really important, always looking out for advice and seeking that mentoring and coaching at this age. I think is going to be really critical in making sure you guys, make the right choice.
Yeah, I can go next. I think we said it a few times here already. It's like you should follow your heart. And it's really difficult. People will tell you, parents, they usually have like plans for their children, what they want them to be. Just, look inside and find out what you really passionate about. And that will change over time too. None of us here knew where we would end up in our career, but just as the first stepping stone. And then you take it from there. So I would say follow your heart and maintain an open mind. Things will change. You might start something and then realize, oh, that's actually not as I expected it to be. And then you change and do something else. So I would not overanalyze it either.
Yeah, so I would add on to saying that, engineering is kind of a springboard for so many things, right? You could decide, yes, I want to be an engineer and then I want to stay in that career path, but it really opens the door to you to do so many other things as well, right? So don't think of it just as, oh, I'm going to be just an engineer. I know that when I came out of computer engineering school, I thought I was going to be coding all my life, right? Really never thought that I would be doing what I'm doing today, right? So if you look at many of the executives within Motorola, many of them started out as engineers, right? And it just kind of led them down some. So as Catherine was mentioning, right? Just follow your dream, follow your path. Don't let anybody get in your way, right? And you're going to be you'll make the right decisions, right? So that would be my ending comments.
And I guess my last 2 cents, and just to reiterate something that Janet said so eloquently, was, in terms of not letting someone bump you off your path. I know a question came in about, if there's any hardships that you may face working in teams and things like that. So I'll kind of merge those two thoughts together. Don't be afraid to be able to speak up when you're in a room and when you're in a classroom or at a job. You're there for a reason. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong there, right? You have your own background, your own experiences, your own mind that's very powerful, and use it, and don't be afraid to use it. If you're in college and you're working in a group, or in high school, and you're having a hard time working together with other people, then feel free to, again, you can step up and be the leader. Don't be afraid to do that, whether it's by always be respectful, right? Make sure that you're willing to listen to other people's ideas, but then also, in that same token, be willing to share your own as well to help mediate different situations. And sometimes, especially in college, when you all get there, there'll be times where, you know what, maybe you have an idea and you're gonna have to start your own thing. Don't be afraid to start your own thing either. So wherever your heart lies, don't be afraid to follow that. As cliche as that sounds, it's really true, because that's the only way that I think that you'll be able to work and really be happy with what you do. And don't let anyone make you feel like you're not supposed to be where you are.
Each of you are very well said. Follow your heart, explore, connect to the people. And one of the valuable resources that you should keep at the back of your mind is Motorola Solution. We offer careers as interns. So keep in mind as you go into the college, look out for the companies that offer internship. We are one of those. We want you to come back at Motorola as an intern. And really, it was, hopefully we'll see you over there. And Markita, back to you. Thank you to all the panelists for the wise words of wisdom and so many golden nuggets that you shared with each of you. Thank you all. You're on mute, Markita.
Yeah, probably need to unmute, right? That's always the funny part. You don't unmute. So I am going to acknowledge some of the questions. Before you all go, I'm going to drop the post-event survey into the chat, guys. I want to make sure that you give us some feedback on what you thought about this session. Also, I did notice that there were a couple questions that didn't get answered. Panelists, feel free to jump in the chat if you'd like to respond to those questions, and any extra questions that you guys might have from here. What I'm going to do is have you all put those into the Sheila Google Classroom. I'll give you the link if you don't have it. You can email me at sweetnext@sweet.org, and I'll make sure to get that question answered for you. Kurti, did you have a contact that you wanted to provide to them if they did want to reach out to you all directly? Or just
work through you, and we'll work with you to give the answers to all the questions that we could not overhear.
Okay, no problem. So we'll do it that way. So you guys give me those questions and I'll get them to the panelists so that you guys can connect as well. Again, I want to just send out a special thank you to each and every one of you all for attending this session tonight. And a very, very special thank you to not only our sponsor, but a group of diverse panelists that really offered such a great perspective that often we don't really pay attention to, but something that is super highlighted with everything that's going on in the world right now. Every single one of you have talked about something that's super relevant that we all just, sometimes you just don't think about it. I was sitting there learning like this, like about all the different things you guys do, because it's the stuff you just don't think about. And it's all important and it all makes a difference in all of our lives. Simple fixes, big fixes, small fixes, it all makes a difference. So I hope that each and every one of you all took something away from this session. Again, thank you to our sponsors, of course, Motorola Solutions Foundation, Cisco Technologies, Lockheed Martin, and General Motors, because of course, without them, we would not be able to provide you with this session. If you guys want to get any access to the PowerPoint slides or any of the information from this session, they'll be available in the Google Classroom under the topic STEM Pathways. So you guys can pull that information from there. Again, you can send your questions or comments to sweetnext@sweet.org, and I'll make sure to get those questions answered for you. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you all for our next live learning session. Thank you so much and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.